Hey, Stereo Azimuth here, and I've got a cool little interesting something that some of you may be interested in. Most of the shit devices and a lot of other devices that I see are now run off 16 volt AC wall wart, not DC. Not like 12 volt DC or 9 volt DC or whatever. They're run off AC power, so it's 16 volts AC, like one of these, but like not DC power, like alternating current. And so you can't do some of the same sort of tricks that you can do with DC power, which is like, oh, let me get a set of this switch mode power supply, like let me get a linear power supply to run this 12 volt DC thing. Can't do that with AC. There's already a linear power supply technically like built in, but because of the small form factor, it's kind of limited, right? Like you usually have a couple, you have some bridge rectifier, and then you have because this is basically just your transformer, right? Just your basic transformer, and all it gives you is one tap. It just gives you the one tap. You don't get multi taps from this. So basically, what you have to do is you have to run a bunch of different, basically switchers, DC to DC, to regulate your voltages to everything that you need on the board. So what do you do? Like how can you improve it? Like what can you do to improve the power supply? Well, that's where I found one of these devices, and there's a couple of different devices that are out there. This one I found on AliExpress, and so I'm gonna do like I'll post a link in the description to what I found. I don't know if it'll still be available, but yeah, somebody pointed it out to me, and I was like, okay, it was under $100, and I'll see what it's all about. So let's just take a look at it, and I'm gonna unbox it now. So let me move my camera over. I'll get it set up, and then we'll unbox it. Okay, so here we are here, and I didn't want to show the top of the box because it has my address on it, and you can't see my address. We open it up, and oh wow, there's wrapped and lots of cellophane. Wonderful. That's where I get out my razor blade. Now I gotta pause the video again. All right, I got it out. This is basically it. And sorry for the blurriness, but it just has this little button on the front. It kind of looks like one of those anti, like, those don't mess with me switches. And then in the back is just an IEC and this little two-prong connector thing. And the two-prong connector just goes in the back, and it's just like one of these. It has this like little kind of nylon-y kind of look to it. And then it plugs. I tested it. Here's a ye old Manny, or Mac. Excuse me. This is a Valley One. Plugs right in. So let me test the voltage right quick. Let me get my voltage thing and an IEC cable, because it does not come with an IEC cable. You have to provide your own. So now I've got the leads. Got it plugged in. I've got the leads. Like I'm testing the leads. I'm holding it in my hand. So I'm doing it safely. I'm not touching the wires. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to hit the button on the front, and we'll see what kind of AC voltage we have. 1706, which is not too bad. Normal, like my AC power, inline power that I have coming in, is really high. So I'll show you what it looks like. Put that there. There. Not too bad today. 122.7, 122.8. Just to show you what kind of power. Now I have a regular like plug here that is a regular direct from the factory like shit power supply, 16 volt AC, and that is what it says. So even though that it's supposed to be 16 volts, it's coming across, at least at my house, at like 19 volts. Now, if you're wondering, like, is this hurting my equipment or something like that, like if you have the same sort of thing going on at your house, don't worry. These things are kind of designed for that, and basically 16 volts is rather relative. I mean, if you look at some of them, they say 14 to 16 volts. And basically what happens with voltage regulators is that they kind of burn off the excess voltage in the amount of heat. So it only means that mine get maybe a couple degrees warmer than yours, maybe a degree, maybe not even anything. But the thing that I wanted to see, not only just like whatever the voltage is like out of it, like is it like fully like how regulated is it, and then also like to check out the sound quality, like what it's going to really change. And because a friend of mine told me like he has a similar one. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll post a link in the description. That's a lot more expensive. It's like $300 or more. And this one looked like a lot more basicer version. Basicer was a word, where it had has a toroidal transformer, and then had some other stuff to it, some other looking filters and stuff like that. No regulators, because regulators are going to be more like for DC stuff, but it had some other filter things. And I don't know what's really going on in that other box. There's too much for me to really kind of look at, like it's way above my sort of electronical expertise or whatever, but it looks like it is doing a lot of also filtering. It may be even doing even more sophisticated filtering than what this box is doing. So, but anyway, I'm going to plug it up to both, like my DAC, my Modi Multibit 2, and my Piety, and my Valley 1 amp. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what it sounds like. What is it going to improve anything? What's going to really happen? I'm kind of almost expecting a little decrease in like dynamics and things, but hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this venture, and see what happens. So because like I said, I think the small form factor of the shit stuff is just because it's not because it's poorly designed. It's just because you're dealing with the limitations of the physical size. So that's what we kind of deal with. So let me check it out, and then we'll see what happens on the other side. All right. So I spent some time with the this Ally like power supply thing, and it does make some improvement excuse me, to like the amplifiers, which I'll get to in a minute. But I was still curious, and I should have done this like sooner, but I wanted to check out like what was actually on the inside, because the ad showed what was in there, but I wanted to check for myself and see what was actually on the inside. So we're going to take a little peek about what I got here. So you can see here's the power coming in, and it's just like the power and this 2-prong with the screw lock connector as the output. So we can see here's our power input, here is where it comes in, and here's our power switch over here, and then you can kind of see and then our toroidal transformer, and then the circuit board. So it looks like to me the power is going like right to the switch, right? And then it comes off of the switch, and then gets connected to the output. The other thing is like the output here, this little cable here is part of the LED wiring. So the LED wiring is also coming off of like the AC coming back, like flying back to here. And a lot of these switches, like you buy them and they're rated for like 16 volts or something. And you can run 16 AC or 16 DC, and they've already got like, the resistor in them or whatever already. So this one's probably rated for 16. So so everything's set, so you don't have to do anything, which is rather nice. It's actually kind of a cool. I kind of like it. It glows blue when you push it in. Some of these can get really expensive, but this one's kind of small, kind of cheap, but it's still like it's a power switch, very effective. And then you have your ground here and your neutral. And then it's connected to look like some MOVs. And then it looks like it's got a couple of transistors. And then it looks like these are here, a couple capacitors, some more like MOVs. And so these are probably, they might not be MOVs. They might be some sort of, current limiters or something like that. If I look at the transformer, the label is still on the transformer, and you probably can't see it on the video, but it's basically it says 115, and then the output secondary is 15 volts is what it says. So to me, it looks like all it is really doing is you have a toroidal transformer, and it looks like the output, like this is the the input of the looks like the output is tied directly here, but like you also have it going to here, like on this side, like on the red side and the black side. So to me, it looks like it's more or less like filtering. This looks like what would be in like a filter if you looked at like a line filter, like a Furman like power conditioner or something like that. You would find a circuit that was very familiar to look like this. So that's kind of what it looks like to me. It looks like they're doing some sort of like power conditioning to, and not just like power conditioning to the incoming voltage, but like what's coming off of the secondary. So, which is normally what you can't do. Like you can only like filter the power. Like if you have a Furman power conditioner or other type power or other brand power conditioner, you can only filter in like the mains that are coming in. But this looks like it's doing like filtering like what's coming off of the secondary. So, which is very interesting to me. But initially, that's what I think is going on. I mean, and to me, as far as the sound quality, as far as like what you're getting sound quality wise out of it, on the amplifier, I tried it on both the the niche Magni Piety, and it did help give a little more heft to the low end and some definition to the low end, and that's probably where it's cleaning up some of that mains voltage. So if I were to look at, probably if I looked at the output, and I probably would have a scope, and very sensitive scope or something like that, and look at the output, you'd probably see a little hump around like 60 hertz, and maybe another little one, a smaller one around 120 hertz, and that's where the mains voltage comes in. Like if you and I'm talking about like when they run 1K signal, and you look at the 1K 1 kilohertz signal, and then you look at the rest of the spectrum to make sure that like everything else is like sort of flat. Sometimes you see little bumps around where the mains voltage are, and this to me, I think like just sort of takes care of that. It just sort of like gets rid of that mains noise and then gives you a little bit better like low end dynamic wise and everything else wise. Like never really did a whole lot of good. Now I've listened to amplifiers, headphone amplifiers, where I've changed out the switch mode power supply to a linear power supply, and I've also like changed capacitors and amplifiers and stuff like that. And, those type of things like can give you a lot more like dynamics and, just make you feel like you have a lot more, clarity going on. I didn't really feel at all like that's what I was getting out of this. I just felt like it was just cleaning up the mains noise, essentially, and giving me a little bit better, cleaner low end. I even tried it on the Valley amp, and the same thing. Valley amp got a little bit, cleaner on the low end. The the Modi, I plugged it into a Modi multi-bit because they all use the same 16, volt AC power supply. Plugged it into a Modi multi-bit, made zero difference. Zero difference. I really couldn't tell the difference at all. It was just like plug in one, plug in the other. They sound about the same. And it's because, you're dealing with such smaller signals, line level versus like the amplifier. And the amplifier is always going to make more difference as to what your final hearing. I mean, so in the power department there, it didn't make really any difference at all. So the question that I have is, and the question that I was like, debating with some of my friends and stuff like that is like, did it make a difference? And the other bigger question is that difference worth it to get this device? And you have to look at the cost of the device, and did that cost sort of equal in sound quality? And I will say, to answer those two questions, it did make a difference in the amplifier. There was a, somewhat distinct difference in the two power supplies, but very slight. I mean, you can, like, I at least could sort of tell the difference between the two power supplies, but was it enough to justify the cost of said device, which was like, almost $100, I think, to get it shipped, or even more. Like, I can't even remember the price, maybe $80. I don't think so. Because, I mean, that's almost like half. I mean, even $75, right, is like about half the price of the amp. I mean, that pushes the price of the amp, up to like $225. It's like $75. And I don't know if it pushes that, if that amp makes it a $225 like amp. I don't see it happening. I don't see it like increasing so much to where it just like totally makes like the end all be all difference. So it's the same thing kind of like with cables. Like, you get used to the sound and you make the cables like, oh man, this makes the biggest difference in the world. It's like, I will admit, putting this on was kind of like changing cables, almost, maybe a little bit more, but you got to consider the cost of, what's involved here. It is cool that you get, this, and it's also huge. It's really big, like case thing. It's bigger than the power supply that I have for one of my other amps. Like, it's an external power supply, and I'm like, it's even bigger than that. But either way, it is cool. But I don't know if it's really worth it. It's neat, interesting, cool for an experiment. But as far as like, would something I recommend everybody go out and get? No, I would not. But, for some people that are trying to like eke out like all of the performance out of like the small amount of stuff that they have, that's fine. But I would probably say, you're probably better off like exploring like upgrades somewhere else, either in your chain or getting better amplifier or something like that. So that's my 2 cents. That's what I say. So anyway, if anybody else has any experience with this thing, or other things, like hit me up. I mean, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to hear about your experiences. Let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe. We'll have some more content later. We'll see you guys later.